Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Superman and Lois Season 4, Episode 3, a phenomenal episode. A lot of really interesting things, great things went down in this episode, sad things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Just finished the episode. I'm still got tears in my eyes and snot in my nose, so hopefully I can work around that and you won't have to deal with that during the recording. But I'm gonna let you know, emotions are really raw. I've never been one who shies away, like, oh, when a movie or TV show makes me cry, I never shy away from that. I embrace it. So yes, this is a powerful episode, and just the reveal of, like, right, we had the opening thinking it was about Clark, and then finding out what it really was about at the end. I was like, oh, that was so beautifully done and executed and so heartbreaking. So either way, we are now, well, we've already been living in a world without Superman, but now it's official. And Lois had to put that out there. And it's like, she has to let the world know, because people can't be expecting, hey, Superman's coming. We gotta believe Superman is the only superhero in this world. We know that they let us know that back in season 2. So he is this world's only, like, superpowered protector. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's even any grounded, like, human heroes that we're aware of. It just seems like, at least on a superpowered level, he's the only one. But like I said, even ground level, there probably aren't any either. But beside the point. But it is to the point, actually. So Sam, the moment he wanted the concoction to that brought Bruno's serum that also brought back Bizarro and ended up helping make Doomsday. The moment he asked for that, I was like, because everyone's assumption was he was going to make another monster. I was like, no, he's not. He's going to try and bring Clark back. He figured if it could bring back Bizarro, it can. But he also didn't want to tell anyone, because he didn't want to give anyone false hope. He's like, if I can do this, I want to make sure it's possible first, and then maybe, but I'll tell everyone after the fact. But I don't want to give everyone's hopes up, because everyone had their hopes up last episode when it came to the heart situation, and that kind of got stomped, which that in itself leads to Jonathan, like, exploding at Jordan, and Jordan's like, hey, I'm sorry, I want you to forgive me. And then Jonathan, like, explodes at him. It's like, my dad died. The fact of the matter is, all I've ever had to do is hear you bitch and complain about having powers and this and that, and I'm the one that lost my dad, and I'm never going to get him back. And just like Jonathan's lost it before, but, like, this is the first time, like, because he's always tried to keep himself calm and collected, and he's gotten upset before, but, like, in this moment, like, him exploding like that, once again, he's been trying to, like, shoulder a lot of it, because he's got to be strong, and he said it before, he has to be strong not only for Jordan, but also for his mom. Because, once again, I think some people do forget, like, Jordan does have, like, emotional issues, so he knows, like, my brother, like, his emotions are already, like, complicated enough just by birth, and now it's like, this is going to send him into overdrive. Mom is doing everything she can to hold it together, so I have to be the one that kind of beats that balance. I have to kind of be that shoulder for both my brother and my mom, and it's just like, it sucks, because it's like, once again, he's going through it too, and they're all trying to be there for each other, but they're all dealing with things in their own way. And everything Jonathan's yelling at Jordan feels it. Like, he feels the worst, because it's like, I'm the one that I had thought I was hot shit. I thought, like, I was ready for this, that I could do this. It's something that's like, Luther's human. I'm Kryptonian. I got this. He's so busy, thinking like he was on top of this, and, like, their one chance to bring their dad back, he's like, I lost it. And seeing so much vitriol from his brother, he was scared. He was like, I don't, we're twins. I don't ever want you to hate me like that. I'm sorry. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to do what's right. But, like, him just going ballistic, like punching that wood pillar, just and busting up his hand, and it's just like him breaking down. I also had no idea the actor Michael Bishop, did not know this until recently, because someone else had pointed out, like, saying he was Australian. I think he's British, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, would never have known. So interesting, because I brought up the whole Elizabeth Henstridge last episode. Like, oh, she's going to do an American accent if she's in fact playing Elizabeth. But it's like, oh, here he is the entire time doing an American accent, and I had no idea. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Either way. So, yeah, and then it's kind of like so much happening at once, because not only did your dad die, you have a very tumultuous relationship with your brother right now. Hey, you got superpowers. Isn't that going to make you feel all kinds of complicated that your superpowers come at literally the most traumatic time in your life? I mean, it's so interesting too because Jordan's thinking about the fact is when his powers first activated because there's on different scales because it seems like Jonathan got everything all at once. He's like, and that's overwhelming in itself. Jordan had like at least a slow build up over the course of the show. I'm curious. Once again, you always have to wonder how much restructuring they did for the show. Just for the purposes of, well, we got the final season, we got 10 episodes to make this happen. So how much of it is like, what's the plan? Like, because I'm curious, like, how many of the original plans are they still implementing in this season like it was any other season? And how much of it did they shift because they're making, like, it's stuff like that. Because the one example I'm thinking of is like, I know of, because it's like Supergirl, interestingly enough. The TV show, like whenever they found out the sixth season was going to be in their final season, at least based on what like Ozzy Tesfaye had said, like on, and maybe this was public knowledge, but like I know she had said it on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, Inside of You, Michael Rosenbaum. She had said like they basically scrapped all of season 6 and had to kind of rewrite it and redo it and stuff like that. So I'm curious if they had to do the same thing in this regard, but either way. But my point was, I'm curious, would they have gotten a slow build up to Jonathan's powers, or was the complication between him and Jordan always going to be that not only did Jonathan get powers, he got everything, whereas Jordan's gotten one ability at a time. It's been an incremental growth, because that's what shocked even. That's what shocked. Oh God, Lois, because she was like, you can't have all of your dad's powers, because Jordan doesn't even have all of their dad's powers to our knowledge, and I think, he probably might have them at this point, but the main thing was like, oh, the fact is that he doesn't have, but he's got them all at once, which Clark, I don't think we got a clarification in this continuity whether it was like a slow build up for him too. I'm sure his process was like Jordan's as well. Maybe like it was one ability at a time. But it also begs the question, like, since he got all his powers at once, are we going to find out that he's a little more Kryptonian than Jordan? Like Jordan's 50-50, but maybe Jonathan's 60-40, 70-30 type of thing, or maybe there's just a half and half, and it's just like that Kryptonian DNA just affects them differently. Because I'm curious, is he going to have all those powers at once, and on top of that, have that same level of Kryptonian weakness that Jordan has? Like, Kryptonite can still knock him out, but it's not as deadly as it was for any other Kryptonian like their dad. So, begs the question. So, that is kind of interesting. No, not just kind of, very interesting. And especially when you think about someone like Jonathan, in conjunction with Jordan. Once again, it's not his fault. It's just like, it is, once again, I can never remember the actual term, because I think the only time they've ever really used it was in season 1, like in the first episode, but like the emotional situation that Jordan has, like it is like a condition that he has, and it's like that in conjunction with superpowers versus Jonathan, who's able to, be calm and kind of still his heart. So it feels so interesting that, like, especially when he brought up in episode 1, he's like, how does your heartbeat never change? And Jonathan's like, I just try not to let the fear control me. And now he's got superpowers, and his words are, I just want to help. He is feeling good, because it is that complicated thing of, yeah, you just lost your dad, but you got superpowers, and it's like, I can do something, I can make a difference. And that's the sad thing. It becomes this divide between him and Jordan, because Jordan's like, cool, yeah, Jonathan's the one with powers, he's the better fit to have powers, I shouldn't have had. But because also, like, Jordan, his emotional situation has always been this complicated roller coaster, and on top of that, he's beating himself up. It's like, I failed, it's my fault. He's already beating himself up. That's always the thing. You could tell yourself something 1,000 times, but the moment someone else tells you that, it cuts deeper. Like, the fact is, everything Jonathan said, Jordan was already feeling, but hearing it from anybody, hearing it from his brother, cut the deepest. So now he's conflicted, because he's like, right, you're going to be the better Superboy than I am. Like, I'm a failure. I've screwed up here and there. I didn't really listen to Dad. I got so conceited with my powers. But hey, you're the better son. Yes, you haven't always been the most responsible son, but you've turned things around and been the more responsible son. You were telling me not to go, and I didn't listen to you last episode, so it is all on me. I continue to make the bad decisions. You have turned things around and become the better son. So all that is just culminating and just washing over Jordan, and then he just gets the, 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 the straw that broke the camel's back, Luther showing up, and I knew that recording was going to come up, and I knew Lois made the choice she was going to make, because Jonathan, yeah, she didn't know Jonathan was in trouble, and that's the thing. I thought, so Lex didn't even know that Jonathan was in his apartment. Maybe he found out after the fact. I don't know, but what we do know for a fact is that, yeah, he ended up being okay, but it was all a ploy because it's psychological warfare. He knew if Lois was going to pick any son, it'd be Jonathan, simply because she's like, whatever, she didn't know that Jordan was in trouble, but for her, it's like, if anyone can get out of this situation, it's Jordan. He has powers, and that's the unfortunate thing. Like, a mother, like, you're so, like, because once again, he's not thinking clearly. He just feels like he's already at his lowest, and like anyone like who's manipulative and as petty as he is, Lex jumped on that opportunity. He knew what kind of an emotional wreck Jordan would be. He waited till Jordan was alone, and then it's like, oh, I present this recording, because he didn't want Lois there to kind of like be able to defend herself. He wanted Jordan to stew in that for a little bit. So it's like, oh, your mom's a liar. She chose Jonathan. And what did the recording say? Like, oh, you chose your favorite son. I feel like that was not said at the time. I do believe that was added after effect for just dramatic effect. Maybe it was there, but like, I knew we all could tell she was going to choose Jonathan because he didn't have any powers. But for Jordan, it's just kind of like, he already feels like Jonathan's the favorite and the better son, especially now that he's got powers. He's like, yeah, he's the better version of me. And because he's always felt an insecurity with this brother. He always felt lesser than. And then he felt better because it's like, hey, I got powers. And he ended up letting that go to his head. But now it's like, hey, with everything going on, like, now Jonathan, the perfect son, who's always been better than me until I got powers. Now he's got powers. And not only does he have some powers, he has like all the powers at once. And he seems to be handling this so much better, especially because Jonathan was always Jordan's rock to kind of help him, his soundboard to bounce stuff off of, and kind of the shoulder he can lean on. And now that person is steps ahead of you. Like, all that compile is just making him feel lesser and lesser than. Like I said, a situation where they should be coming together as super boys, they, like, Jordan's being manipulated by Lex to pull them apart, because that's the whole point, to tear his family apart. He says, like, Lois has been lying about other stuff, but it's like, he's saying that just to strike a chord at, like, I don't think there's any other secrets. Like, everything else is kind of known. Maybe there's going to be some other stuff, but he's doing everything he can to destroy this family, because what happened? Lois destroyed his in his mind. So, and Jordan had the audacity to show up at the DOD being like, yo, you locked a man up for something he didn't do. He's just word vomiting. Like, he's upset, he's hurt, he's pissed at himself. And it's just that thing of, like, when you're pissed and upset at yourself, and then someone adds on something else of, like, someone wronged you in some capacity, you're gonna lash out at them even more, because it's easier to lash out than kind of like, because it's like, oh, I get to take all the feelings, all the sadness, all the anger I have inside of me, I get to vomit it at someone else, and at something that, like, in a calm moment, he would recognize, yo, Lex is manipulating me, but he's at a low point, and Lex chose the perfect point to tip him over the edge. You know, he doesn't know about Jonathan getting powers. He just knew, like, oh, you beat pretty down because the only means of saving your father is gone. You also exposed yourself to me, so I know you're a Superboy. I know you got powers. I'm also the one that holds the cards on knowing exactly who your dad is. So everything, you know? So Lois had talked to Sam about the whole thing, which Sam is like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to get Jonathan trained up and everything. But he also says, like, hey, I trained Jordan behind your back, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. This has to be your decision. Whatever it is, I will respect it. But if, hey, you bring Jordan along, we'll build a team. He's already got talking to Nat and John Henry Irons, because the situation of you're the closest thing we have to protectors now. And so the life that they were building for themselves, it's like, in Metropolis, like, you can't do that, because, and John wants Natalie to make the choice, but it's kind of like there is no choice. The fact of the matter is, this is for her, it's like, we were not able to fight back when our world was destroyed before. This is our opportunity. Like, she's like, this is the place I love. This is the family we have. It's like, we have a chance. She's like, I can't imagine what it's like for John and Jordan losing their dad like this. And then John says, like, no child should have to go through losing a parent, which obviously Natalie's been through that struggle. So it's like, hey, we'll do this. And it's like, Sam, you don't have to give us the hard pitch. We got this. And he's just like, me and Superman did not always see eye to eye, but I did have his back ultimately, and things did turn around. I want you to know from the beginning, I got your back, especially you, kiddo, because it's like, yeah, you guys are family to him. So it's like, and we got those flashbacks, which I love the parallel of using those flashbacks. Once again, that time frame we got in that little montage at the beginning of the series, to kind of play into that time frame and use those moments in conjunction as a parallel to like the beginning and the end of so much. Like, and we get that with Sam's story in this, him finding out about, back in the days when he was not the fondest of Superman, and Clark had to be like, oh, I'm him. I'm Superman. He's me. We're the same person. He's like, oh, come on, guy. Like, I mean, Kent, you're good, but and then he does the thing. I immediately thought, oh my God, are they going to play this for a joke in the moment Clark takes off the glasses? He's like, what's that supposed to do? But I do appreciate it. I was like, oh, I was so certain they were going to play it for a joke, but I love that they did. They played it the sincerity. They didn't play it for a joke. They made it, and it's like, no, like this is the moment I take off my glasses. And it's not like magic or anything. It's just a psychological thing of you. If the way I present myself is like, oh, this kooky, dorky dude. Like, there's no way I can be Superman. But like the moment I stand up a little straighter, take off my glasses, and this look on my face, that determination, the face of a hero, then it's like, well, holy shit, you are Superman. He's like, ta-da. It is like a magic trick without any magic, no tech behind it. Like I said, I immediately thought like, oh my God, they're going to play this up for a joke. But now in retrospect, I'm like, I'm actually glad they didn't. I do love that. It's like, no, this is a core element to who Superman is, and to kind of be able to be like, no. Because I know people, once again, have their own issues with the whole Superman, like Clark Kent's the worst disguise. But there is so much more to it. And once again, I'm really excited to see what James Gunn has done with from what we've seen from them, set leak photos. If you've not seen them, don't go out spoiling yourself or anything. But yeah, so that's going to be an interesting approach to that. Like, there's a little bit more involved than just the glasses, but like I said, we'll leave it at that. But it is such a traditional Superman thing, and I know some people have not been like, oh, really? And I made a video about this. In fact, I made a short about it, talking about why I actually think it's a fantastic disguise, because there's so much more physicality and elements to it. It's like, once again, you make yourself invisible, you make yourself smaller, you seem clumsy and goofy. Like, the glasses are just a physical representation of kind of hiding yourself. It's like a mask, but it's just a physical representation of the larger physicality of being Clark Kent versus Superman. So that's just what I think. And I think it's just that beautiful, iconic thing in that moment. And obviously it's kind of like, hey, you're going to join the DOD, right? And Clark's like, no, I'm still thinking about it. He's like, well, then why are you here? It's like, I want to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. And he's like, yeah, no, you're not getting my blessing. And it's like, why? It's like, she fell in love with Clark Kent, and he brings this up to her later on. You fell in love with Clark Kent. You're going to be marrying Superman. And he's like, he's coming from a place of love where it's like, hey, like, you both aren't thinking this through. The fact is, you are a superhero. You are going to leave her. Might not be intentional, but you will, because yeah, you've never had to face like a massive threat. But he's like, there is evil in this world that is gunning for you and will always be gunning for you. And one day you just might not come back. And Lois is going to be the one that has to live with that for the rest of her life. And how poetic. I mean, once again, that's the point of it, just to be like boom, 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 to past to present, and see how the past has influenced the present of life. This is a day that no one ever thought really could and would come, but here we are. And so yeah, and I'm sure for Sam, it's like he's also remembering these moments, because he's like remembering like, man, like I didn't always treat Superman right. And that's also the interesting thing. Like, to people from the outside, it looks like, oh my God, Sam had a really good relationship with Superman. It's like, Superman was his son-in-law, was not just his son-in-law, his son. That was family to him. And so that's why it strikes so hard, where it's like, I have to just be the military man, try to be platonic of, man, I was buddy with Superman, not letting anyone know how deep your connections were. But yeah, but Clark is like, regardless of it all, I am going to marry your daughter. And I came here for your blessing, but I'm still going to go through with it because I love your daughter. He's like, if you really loved her, you'd walk away. But he's like, you know where I stand. So he does come to the wedding, but he overhears Clark and Martha talking. And Clark knows how messed up like how complicated Lois and her father's relationship is. And I think especially coming from someone who had a good relationship with his parents and also lost his dad, like, he knows how much that sucks, which is like, man, the parallels, Lois's mom walking out of her life, Clark losing his dad when he was a teenager, and now the kids are teenagers losing their dad, and Nat and John Henry Irons losing their Lois. It's just like, this family has dealt with so much loss in so many different, and I mean, obviously Clark has lost both of his parents at this point in time, and now sadly Lois has too, one walking away versus one just sadly dying, but he overheard that conversation where Clark is like, yeah, but I want to make him part of the family, because his mom was like, oh, here you are being the hero. He's like, no, I want him to be a part of the family, and that's all there is. And she's like, I love you for it. You're gonna be a great husband. You're gonna be a great father. And eventually Sam talks to Lois about all of this, and it just comes down to a situation of accepting the fact that she loves who she loves, and he's always going to have his reservations, but it is a thing of like, I came to this, my situation is, I come from this from a place of love, because he's like, he looks and sees so much of himself in Lois and Clark, because it's like someone that is someone who is as career orientated as you, and then someone who is very service minded being Clark. So it's like, he's like, I saw how this worked between me and your mom, and she's like, me and Clark are not you and mom, and I get it, you're scared, but you don't have to be, and he's like, fine, I have my reservations, but I'm always going to be there for you, Pumpkin, I promise. And he kept that promise. Ultimately, like, Lex got his inside guy, which we find out is John L. Jones. The moment it said, I was like, you're not. I was like, that's too much of a, you could have called him something else. John L. Jones. I'm like, come on. I'm like, John Jones, right? Like, I'm not the only one who immediately jumped to that conclusion. Like, so part of me was like, are we going to, that's not him there, but are we going to find out he replaces, that has to be like a wink and nod. Makes you wonder something like, would they have eventually introduced a Martian Manhunter in this universe? Once again, this show could have potentially gone for 7 seasons, so we don't know what the future would have been. Would they have ever introduced other heroes, brought back some Arrowverse people just to make this part of that same continuity, or it's probably would have always just stayed Superman centric. I'm really curious, and I'm sure their showrunners and writers would have probably shared some thoughts about what they would have done had the show continued. But regardless, that's a conversation we'll probably talk about more when we get to the end of the season, or series. But I just like immediately was like, John L. Jones. I was like, John Jones is like him in disguise, but it's like, no, he wouldn't have shot John the way he did. I mean, he wouldn't have shot Sam the way he did. And so it was like, yeah, his family's being threatened, and Lex is like, hey, give me the information. And it's like, I'm not going to. And they struggle over the gun, and it goes off. Sam, once again, everyone believing he's going to make the monster. I knew he was going to try and bring back Superman. So I thought in that moment he's going to be like, okay, I could either use this to save myself, or I'm going to save Clark. And then he injects himself. I'm like, what are you doing, Sam? Like, are you trying to become a monster to fight that monster? What are you doing? And it's not till like we got that scene with him and Lois, that's where the tears started pouring out in that moment. Like with when they were talking in the barn, like just before her bout, like that moment is where I started to break. And I was like, oh my God. And that scene made me go, he's sacrificing himself. By injecting himself, he's going to give his heart to Superman. And it's like, because especially when he told John, like, I need you to do something for me. You have to do it. And I was like, he's trying to sacrifice himself. He's giving like Lex he's not going to give Lex what he wants, and Lex is going to like kill the only means of getting his information, because that secret about where Elizabeth is, maybe he told John Henry Irons and Natalie, who knows, but that secret dies with him. Lex, like, impatience and like it was that like he let his anger get the best of him. He's not as pragmatic. He can be, but he's so angry now, and I think that will be his undoing. But yeah, Sam sacrificing himself. I promise you, like he's like, I promise to protect her. At the time, you're kind of thinking like, oh, is he talking about Elizabeth? Is no, this is about Lois. He's like, I'm gonna protect her, and the best way I can protect her is bringing back her husband. So like, yeah, this is gonna suck for her, but in the long run, it's gonna bring back the person that's gonna be by her side and who's gonna always look after her. And he sacrifices himself. It's like, damn. it was such a heartbreaking scene. And John Henry Irons having to immediately grab him and take him to the Fortress of Solitude to do this. You know, it's like, right, like Sam just died. We have to do this immediately before like the situation passes us by. It's like, yeah, he has a human heart, but yeah, it was injected with all of this. And that final message from Sam being like, the fact is that you're going to have Clark back. Like, the fact is, he's like, you and Clark, I was very stubborn and set in my ways, but you and Clark helped turn me around. I'm glad you made me a part of your family to get to know my grandchildren, John, Jordan, and also Natalie. It's like, I'm so grateful. And he's like, I love you so much. And I will bring Clark back. And when his heart beats, I will always be by your side because his heart will be mine. And that's such a beautiful thing. Because again, I always have to bring it back, but like there's a certain sentimentality. I think it's so beautiful about that. Like in a Trails situation, there's a character, Reem's heart situation. It's a beautiful thing to think about continuity wise, that he will always carry a certain heart with him because of what it means in the grand scheme of things, of whose heart it is, and yada yada. His circumstances being what they are. Reem Schwarzer from Trails of Cold Steel and all that. But either way, it's kind of a nice thing too that Clark will be back, but also the heart he has is Sam, and that way, like, her father will always be with her. You know, the men she loved, like, as her father, like, is helping keep the men she loves alive and heart beating and going. So obviously Laura has her concerns, so the question is, how is this going to play out? What's going to happen to Superman upon coming back? Obviously, you know that returning from the dead is, I mean, once again, I'm not that well versed in the Death of Superman storyline. The only version I know is the one from Zack Snyder's version from like BVS to Justice League. That's all I know. So we saw what happened there. So I'm wondering if that's probably going to be a couple episode arc in this. Maybe, maybe not. But especially like how John and Jordan are going to handle and respond to that. But yeah, and the last shot of the episode is Clark waking up. So like I said, powerful and emotional all around. Some amazing development, some heartbreaking developments. It's just that family cannot catch a break. Like I said, there's so much like pain and trauma, but sadly, that's life, you know? You got to enjoy the good with the bad with the good, because yes, life isn't always going to be good, but it's not always going to be bad. It can feel like that sometimes, especially when life hits you with the major roller coasters that it did. I hope that this situation can unify Jordan and Jonathan, that they become super boys and not just be on their own islands going forward. So it's one thing after another. So it's like, right, we have to be united against Lex, and what that fight looks like going forward is definitely going to be interesting to see. I think I said it earlier about the conversation between Sam and Lois in the barn in the flashbacks. That's where I start crying. I didn't stop crying until the end of the episode. And once again, even when the credits rolled, I still had tears and snot in my eye, because it just kept getting like Sam's death hit me hard. Then the hologram conversation hit me hard. I mean, it's like, and also then the funeral line of her being like, especially because it ties into the title of the episode, "You are always my hero." You're especially when, like I said, the beginning makes you think like, oh, this is them kind of having a private funeral for Clark, and you don't even see Nat and John Henry Irons in those shots at the beginning, and then you get that reveal at the end. It's not only the Kent family, it's them as well, because they are family as well. But especially when it's tied to Sam, and it's just like, dude, it's just, like I said, I thought that was just masterfully executed. I actually also wanted to add this in. I didn't realize that, I'm always going to butcher his last name, so I'm just going to refer to him as David, the actor. He played Nick in Grimm, because that's actually where him and Elizabeth Tulloch met, because they are married. But yeah, Elizabeth Tulloch's husband is directed this episode. I think she had talked about this on Katie Sackhoff's podcast. I think I remember her saying like he specifically directed episode 3. I don't remember he directed any others or not, but I completely forgot about that till I was like going back and scrolling and getting some thumbnails for the episode. But either way, I was like, oh, I think he did a fantastic job directing this episode. Just once again, top to bottom, just great. It's just like, it's like one emotional season after another. Like last season left you kind of heartbroken and train wrecked, and this season's going to do it too. And it's just like, I wasn't like the Sam of it all like was just so unexpected. So that's what makes it really just kind of like a gut punch. And that's also the thing to think about too. Once again, like what the future would have meant in this series. Like would they have always killed Sam? Because we were already going down the death of Superman route by the end of last season. So probably this might have been something they already had in the cards prior to the final season, or maybe they made this decision because like John no, I think Nat said like he was trying to find a donor. The plan was never going to be him, but it was like I was shot and it's the last second thing, we need Superman, so he made the decision in this moment. But that's the thing, like if the show had continued, Lois would have had to, like, she's going to deal with it for the rest of the series, obviously, like episodes we have left, but that would have probably been something she continued to deal with over the course of like any future season. So just wanted to include that in this conversation as well. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.